got a treat for you this weekend. I got my sons Andy and Josh here, and they're going to help work on the Mustang this weekend. And we always have a tradition here before we start a long, hard weekend of work. We like to loosen up by doing some calisthenics. So let's get loose, boys, so we can really get working on this Mustang. Stretch out, guys. So, whew, boy, that was tiring. Now we're all loosened up now, and we're ready to hit it hard on this Mustang and get it done, get all that welding done today. All right, let's go, boys. That's not what I had in mind.
When we last did a video, we taped all this off and did weld-through primer on all the main surfaces where we had to put the upper radiator support. And so I ran out of weld-through primer, I had to go get some more. And so today everything's good and dry. We're going to take this paper off, and then we're going to get these brackets. And last time, everywhere I needed to do a spot weld, I put a white dot. So we're going to punch those out, and it's going to sit right on here like this. I have it marked lines back here to get it in the exact same spot as this one over here, and then we'll grind, get all the paint off the back side of it, and then spray that with weld-through primer so there's no way you can get any rust in between these two things. And then while I'm doing that, actually I'll probably pass that off to Josh. Where is he? Oh, Josh. I'm going to pass this off to you and let you punch holes in this thing. And we will do the same thing with the radiator support. We get to use this, which is a treat because this was my grandfather's punch. So this is like 60 years old, 70 years old, something like that. So it's set, got different diameter punches inside it. You can change the tip on it. So Josh, anywhere there's a white dot on there, punch that out. I'm taking this paper off.
Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grind off the backside of these holes where it's going to be welded to the support over there. And when I get done with that, I'm going to take and spray it with some weld-through primer, because whenever it's welded to the support, that weld will heat up so much that it burns through the regular paint. And then once it does that, it would rust. So that's why we're putting on this stuff.
get this thing kind of dry fitted here before we weld it, make sure everything's gonna fit. And it was a hard time putting this in here last time. Not bad this time. So we're making sure this bracket is in here so that it can be welded first. Get it in the right spot. And then all these lines that we wrote on that white pencil, you can barely see now since we've painted, but they're right here. That's where they need to be. Right there. We'll check that on both sides and then we'll clamp everything. And then we'll start welding. So we went outside and got the damaged fender from the other side, and we're going to do some tests on it, and we want to know like how much clear coat did they put on this thing. If we start sanding on the car, is it going to sand through and make us have to repaint, the entire car? So we'll do some stuff with some 1500 grit paper and sand on this with the block and see how long it takes before we actually sand through it. So what we're going to do is get this, we got 1500 grit paper and a flexible block, and we're going to soak this paper in some water for a while, get it softened up so it doesn't get some cracks in it when we fold it.
Josh, do the wet sanding on this fender here, the damaged one, because he's a master at sanding car parts. He refinished his Jeep Wrangler last summer and had to wet sand the entire thing, so he is a professional. You can see the horrible paint quality that's on this fender, so we're going to try to make that better.
So we are in fact not using Mean Green, the super strength cleaner. We are actually using water to sand and buff the paint because I feel that a cleaner would not be good for that.
So Josh has this sanded down pretty well, this 1500 grit. And I don't know if you can see on the camera how you start to see dots in here. Those are the low places in the clear coat. And he sanded it down to where, you don't see any dots through here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put some buffing compound on there and just buff it real fast with a rough buffing pad, a white like wool buffer, and see how much clear it's going to get and how much shine it's going to get after this test. So I think after the buffing trial on this little spot, looks to me like if we have the same amount of clear coat on this as we did do on the rest of the car, then I think we should be okay, because that's acceptable, especially just with the white coarse pad. We haven't even started the blue one yet, so we'll see how that goes. Well, I'm waiting on some weld through primer to dry. I want to go ahead and start wet sanding process since we know, or since we think, we have enough clear coat on this to make it buff out alright. So look at all the scratches and everything on this roof. It's pretty rough. So I've probably got another 30 minutes or so before my primer dries. So I'm going to set this up, do a time lapse, and I'll tape off all these cracks and everything so my white slurry doesn't get down in there, and I'm going to sand. Okay, so I've got about a quarter of this roof sanded, and this is at 1500 like I said, and I'm kind of living on dangerous ground now because I've got it sanded down to where most of the orange peel or the rough surface of the paint is gone, but now I'm down to where I can see you know, all the scratches I showed you before, all the scratches are still there. And so if I keep trying to get those deeper scratches out, the more I sand, the better chance that I'm going to have of sanding through that clear. And then once I sand through clear, it's too late. You got to repaint. So I'm going to continue to gingerly sand and try to I'm going to take my chances. I think those scratches are really going to show up. I know they'll buff out some when I use the buffer, but I don't think I'm there yet. So I'll continue on. Okay guys, it's taking a long time because I'm really trying to take my time and not go to anything more aggressive than a 1500 grit. It's just going to be more of a chance that I sand through, so I'm just going really slow, and there's still some scratches. Right here, it's a pretty big one, right in here. A lot of these are just sand scratches that scratch out, or that'll sand out when I go to 2000, but like that one is that one I had a while ago that's starting to go away. There's just a few that need some more attention, so I'm going to keep trying, keep your fingers crossed. Don't want to sand through. Okay, so thank goodness I've got most of these big scratches out. All the little ones you see there are all just 1500 grit scratches that'll come out when I do the 2000. But there's one here. You can just, if you're ever doing this, you can just circle that with a marker, and you'll sand the marker off before you'll ever sand the scratch out. But that's to help you see where your scratches are once the panel gets wet, because you can't tell where the scratch is once you spray water on it. So I'm going to keep on going 1500 until I get those out. So whoever painted this, hats off to you somewhat, because you may not have been able to spray clear very well, but at least you put a bunch on there. Okay, so I was able to get all the scratches out, like 98%, and so I'm gonna be happy with that and not take my chances on sanding through. So that's a load off. That's the worst scratches that were on the car, so hopefully everything else will sand off easier and without having to worry about going through. There's a couple more scratches on the other side of the roof, but not bad, so definitely start with the worst.
Prior to contrary belief, this is not in fact the Mean Green Super Strength Cleaner that we are using to sand and buff. We are actually using water.
Did you say prior to contrary belief?
What is it?
Contrary to popular belief.
Okay, I thought that's what I said.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 3, 2, 3, 3, 4. 34 screwdrivers.
Am I right at the back of that?
Mm-hmm.
Are you rolling?
Huh?
Yeah.
Thing was doing that, and I don't remember if it was this valve here, finally just wore out, and I was walking right by it over there, and it goes boom, and it goes boom, right straight out. I mean, slammed into that ceiling, and I thought at first I was dead, and then when I finally figured, because then it goes, you know, like super loud. I had to run over here and turn off the valve, and I had to buy a new thing over there. Alright, quit building.
Next week on Rebuild It, Mark stirs some paint. Also, make sure to check us out on Instagram, where we post behind the scenes photos, sneak peeks, giveaways, and information on future videos. Thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in and watching this week's episode of Rebuild It. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any awesome content. Have a good one.